All right. Only once again, please. Good morning. Good morning. Please. All right. We started looking at Bootstrap HTML element classes, right? Let me take it one after other. Explain to us the importance of what are to doing them individually. Because if I just take us to the library and copy and start pasting, sometimes we may not understand some of these classes manually. So we are expected to understand at least majority of these element classes. So what do I mean? We're talking about let's say you are working with an image and you want to use Bootstrap in order to ensure its responsiveness. You should be able to do that. You have done for image, right? Other element again. You have done for anchor tag, right? Then we need for this only image and anchor tag. What? We need for button as well. So I just have of them to ask this session. And anywhere I stop, you have to go and research the remaining ones. This is going to be the last class for picking on those elements individually. The next class will just be taking us to the library and then getting the code. Then starting from JavaScript and how to use some Bootstrap activity. Our website. Let's start with Bootstrap team, right? Bootstrap team. Let's start with Bootstrap team. Now, I don't think there's anybody here who does not understand what is called team, right? We have learned all this individually before. We are only considering the Bootstrap word version, right? Coded table, right? Organizes data in vertical and what horizontal manner. And we also know that it will have some other related tags or associated tags like what? TH, TD, right? TR. So what we are saying is that same format, but in Bootstrap, how do you code it in order for that table to be responsive? Because if you check the table you designed the other time, I'm not sure that that table is what? Responsive. Okay, so let me bend that on this same file. So Bootstrap BS table design. BS table design. So let me quickly walk us through. Now remember that before this, you need to have set up your Bootstrap either through CDN or offline before you can use all these classes and be able to get the right response. Let me start by clearing my table tag. I will expand this. And then all I need to do is to add Bootstrap what? Class, which is table. So Bootstrap class is what? Table. So this table will make it to be responsive. Now, I want to write table head, T head, due to the type of table I want to design. So we have T head. There are some few tags that I did not use when I was teaching us the manual, so please pay attention here. So my table T head is one that will wrap what? to create my table head capture. It's one that will capture the first row, which is what the T out, and then I will expand the T out. Then, of course, inside the T out represents what? Table what? Row, right? So inside this first row, I want to add what? Table what? Field or table headings. So the first one, for example, let's say what? First name. That part of what we have done before. So I'm adding another T head inside the T out. Then that should be last name. Last name. Adding another TH. That to the username. I just want a very simple table just to explain what's then. So that this is what I have in the table what? The table head. The table head represented as T head. This is where these are the elements we are wrapping in what? The T head. So let's go to the front end and see what we have coded so far, so that we can as well monitor the how Bootstrap is actually making it responsive to make sure that you are coding. So you can see the way it distributed them what evenly. So we have let's say some CSS impacts on this table, right? So now let's continue. Now we are coming outside the T head to create what? Table what? Body. You know, when we launched the table, we did not use this T head and what? Table body. So that's why I say you should pay attention. Now, what we are saying is this. Look at what happened here. That T head is one that generated what? This line that you are seeing. That is what? These are the headings, the heading section of the table. Now, the body of the table, whatever will be displayed here is what we want to wrap inside what? The T body. Are you following? Okay, so now inside the T body, we have another row. We start creating table row. Then inside the first table row, I will have what? TD, which means what? That's the table what? Data, right? So the first one, we are following the headers here. The headers here is here we need to add another TH, please. And that TH is to represent what? The number. That's number 1, number 2, number 3. So let's go back to the front end and check. So, or we can say serial what? Number. So whichever way you want to label it. So now with that, so that you know the reason why I'm creating this. So this is the first value that will be under what? This TH, right? We are creating the table data according to what? To the table heading. So the next one is what? TD for what? TD for what? First name, right? Which could be a Guero. That is the TD. Then we need TD for what again? For last name, right? Which is what? Eloho. Let's say Eloho. Then we need one more what? TD for what? For what? User what? Name. Username. Username. Let's say what? Username is Prosper at 11. So if I go back to the front end, you see that what? Each of the header has what value collected. And you can see a kind of sign that is coming out. All these are what you ought to do with what? Your CSS. But because we have already added, look up here, if we remove this now, if we remove this table class now, you will notice that most of these things that we are saying will no longer be. Can you see what we have now? Just for you to know that that table that you use there as a class has a lot of CSS properties what attached to it. So let me bring it back. And if you go back, you see that what we are getting the Bootstrap what styling. All right. So if you really take your time to really master Bootstrap, is it not faster? It's actually faster. It saves you from taking your time to be calculating CSS, except where the default style do not match. And which method did I recommend you should implement? Custom was CSS, which was inline, right? Inline. Good. So don't forget that. So now we want to create for another record. Who can tell us what we do? For another record, we are still in the body. I'll just copy the whole of this T out, right? To save my time. And then copy, and then I'm still here. Then what? Paste. So I will not edit the information. But just because we are late because of time, let me just paste some rows and then move on. We want to practice, we can follow it properly. So let's check what we have written. Fine. You can see we have a very good looking. Now let's check whether it's responsive. Because how do we check if this table is responsive? Is if it doesn't break to different words, the devices what view. They will know that if I start reducing this table, this screen from the left hand side, if it's cutting off some parts of what I'm currently saying, it means that what the table is not what responsive. So let's start now. Let me minimize here. You see what happened? The last one is what? Do not username, and you are still seeing it. Look at it, which means that what the table is what responsive. So that is the major achievements. Now, any question on that? Any question? So that is how to, it's very simple. It's just one class that we put there, which is what? Table. Very simple. So it shouldn't be difficult for us. Now, let's see how we can color the table. Let's want to give this table now. Let's look at Bootstrap classes for coloring table. Right, Bootstrap classes for coloring table. Background. So currently the background color of this table is white. So for any reason, if I want to change the background color, how do I achieve that? So we are talking to the table here. So which means that the class should be here. Remember how I taught us the other time that we are not expected to declare more than one class attribute just because you want to what? Speak multiple classes. This same class we use, but how do you write it? You space, right? Inside that what value. You want to bring in another class. And the next class, which means that look up, the table here is the base bootstrap what class. There is always base bootstrap class before what? The other classes. For example, when we style our button, we had VTN first on its own before we started saying what VTN primary, right? So in other words, there must be one that actualizes the responsiveness and the one you are using to change the appearance. So in this context, this table here is the one that implements what? The responsiveness. So the background color we want to bring in is not about what responsiveness any longer. It's just the appearance of the table you want to rectify. So you now say table. That is what you always call that base one. Then you do hyphen. I'll put what primary. So what color will that one give us? So if I go back there now, what do you see now? We have given it what? This background color. Very simple. You acknowledge the base class, then you put hyphen, you call the color. So if I want to give it red background color, what will I do? I will just change here to what? Danger. Very simple. So let's go back there. Red background color. Red background color. So now, if I want to give it info, that is another color. Info, success, warning. These are what? Different what? Color. Right? Or dark. Any question on that? So you write, hope you are taking note of the classes. I say bootstrap what? Table background what? Classes. The first one is what? Just write table info, table what? Primary, table secondary, table sources, table warning, and so on like that. Table secondary. So you can just list them like that. So if we look at this now, look up, look up. You can see that what? There is no borderline. How many of us have observed that? There's no borderline, right? So how do we add the borderline using Bootstrap? Right, table streets, streets. That's TRIPED. Or is that the word? Okay, so just write table split rows. Table split row. Yeah, take that one. Take this one. Table what? Straight row. Right? STRIPED. Straight rows. That is what it is used for creating alternative row colors. Now, let me show us what we want to achieve. You can see that all the rows have the same color, right? Let me remove that background effect first. So if I remove this, I want us to look at what I'm saying here. So we have this particular, look up, this particular row has the same color with what? The background. You know, there are some tables you see that this one will have white, this one will be black background, this one will be white, black. That is alternative. Right? So how do we implement that? There's a class, right? A Bootstrap class for creating alternative row color is table. You write that Bootstrap class for creating alternative row color in a table is table -3. Table -3. So if I go to the front end, what did you get now? Have we seen the impact? Look at the slant background color, different from this. As an alternative. Hope we are also verifying the place as we are going. So let me give us some time to apply this. It's like some of us we are not applying. So you can. So that is for that. Now let's look at right table with borderline. Table Bootstrap table with borderline. Bootstrap table with borderline. Class. To add borderline to Bootstrap table, use table -bordered class. So let me add it here. Table -bordered class. So look up. This is how you write it. Table what? -bordered. -bordered. This is the class. So let's check. You see that it has added what? Border lines. You can see that it has added border lines. Bootstrap what? Table what? Border line. Did you see the line? We were not there before. We are not having the vertical lines. Okay, so let me add the other one. Table -3. Now I just want to have the other one so that we can keep styling. So the one you are taking now is what? This is what we just learned now. This is what activated what? The border lines. Please, it should be applied immediately so that we can move together. Once you have taken your notes, apply it, see the effects. Have we all confirmed? Yeah. Right. Now let's quickly look at the next one. Table rows hover or hoverable rows. Right. Hoverable rows. That is hoverable rows. Yes. To hover, even. Hoverable rows. Right. To add hover effects. On Bootstrap table rows when the users touches them. To add hover effects to Bootstrap what table rows when the user touches them. Use Bootstrap class name called table -hover. If I add table here, -hover, table what? Hyphen over. Table hyphen over. That is all you need to add. Now let's check. What did you notice as I'm touching the row? Can you see a kind of effect that is coming up? Once you are on a row, it will give you a kind of selection to highlight, to give you some focus on that particular. But if you remove that, border strip, it will make more sense. Let me remove this first, and then go back, so we can say that it's making more sense now. Because when you have alternative, the selection is almost the same appearance with the alternative. Are we together? Now let's look at the next one. Small table, just like the way we were analyzing the breaking points. Small table. To create Bootstrap small table, use Bootstrap class name, table -sn. Small table, use Bootstrap class name, table -sn. -sn. What did you notice? You can see that what? Class name, table -sn. Table what? sn. So I want us to observe something. Look up. Look at the size of the row now, the table, right? Now let's add that class. Table plus what? Table what? sn. Now let's go back to the front end. Do you notice any difference? That's if it's smaller. The smaller. That's if it's compact, as in you will compress it a little. Now, if you did not take note of it, just stay on this now. Let me remove it. Then we'll see it. Look at where it stopped now. So let's go there. I remove this now. That is the best way you can know. So you can see it. Close. Now, let's assume that you have, right, the next one is what? Responsive table, right? Responsive table. Right, responsive table class is used to wrap table in a table responsive to make it scrollable. It's used to add table in a responsive, to add table in, so to make table what? Responsive, in order to make it scrollable. That's to scroll. So it's going to add a kind of scroller. So what is the Bootstrap class name for that? We write use Bootstrap class name. Yes. So what we are going to do is this. We are going to wrap the entire table in a div, and the div, right, what I'm saying now, to achieve this, wrap the entire table in a div with a class name, table responsive. To achieve this, add or wrap the table in a div with the class name, table responsive. So now look up. So this is where our table started. So I will just add what? div here. Just pay attention. Now I will cut the closing part of the div. I'll cut it because we are wrapping the entire table inside, right? So I'll go to where the table ends and then paste it, which means that at the moment the entire table is directly inside what? The div. Now, for me to create that scrollable first, I will add class table what? Table response. That is what? Response. That is the class name you are using. Now, if you go back to the front end, what did you notice? What did we notice? Now, what will happen is that in case there is, let me reduce it. If you are viewing this in very small objects where you cannot view, maybe due to the number of the headers are much, that it will not create a scroll. You see a kind of scroller that can allow you to go up and down or horizontally to see everything. But the content we have is the reason why. So let's add more. Let's add more column. Just copy and paste. Just add more column to your. Let's see whether we can experience that effect. So the only thing is that if we want it to, since vertical one, we have limited header to see the part of the vertical one. If you want to create the scroll button or the scroller horizontally, we'll just add this to just add hyphen what sm sorry sm hyphen empty rather, that is for million bytes hyphen what empty. Just add this to it. So that's on the smaller device. Let's see whether we will have, we try your own. We're supposed to have a horizontal scroll bar on the smaller device. So just try it from your end and see if you will get that effect. Your class name is table what I feel responsive, right? For the div. If it comes on what we are, let's expect and see. Let me see. Except if it's not compatible with the version we installed. But let me see. We are supposed to get scroller. We are not even getting any of the scroll. So it will probably is the version issue because that is the structure. So any questions so far? No, they are just minor things that we wanted to pursue on the table. So if there's no question, we take another main object that I want us to understand. It's Bootstrap classes, right? Bootstrap form design. Let's look at form. Bootstrap form design. So any other information, you can deepen your research on any of these that we have taken to know more. Bootstrap form. Bootstrap form. BS form design. If this should be Bootstrap what? Form design. Right? Right. To make form responsive, use Bootstrap classes such as. So let me design the form structure first. So form, and then the class name. The class name is so inside the form itself, we are not adding class to the form because it's just going to be as a container. Now we have a div, whose class, this div is just like sub-container inside the form container. So let's add class to this. So the class we are using here is what? MB, let's see what? -3. So that is just to implement it, to calculate the size of the column, how it's going to break. Now, let's add label. Remember that when we are designing from those inputs, we are creating both the label and the inputs in what? In the div then, right? Just to make them what? Block or to display block. So we say label, just for you to take note of the Bootstrap class name we are using. So our label, I'm adding a label for, let's say this one is label for email. Let's say label for email. Label for email. Just a simple form to explain that concept. Label for email. Then what is the class? So that this can be responsive. What's Bootstrap's class for that? Going to be form for hyphen what? Label. Hyphen label. Just to make it responsive. And then the description part, I'll put what? Email address. Email address. So just make sure that you are taking notes of the classes that are involved as we develop this form. Now, I want to create an input tag, input, which you already know, input tag, and then the input tag, the type is email. These are part of what you know. It's direct HTML validation so that you recognize only HTML formats. Then the class we are using here is what? Form control. So what you do is that you write it this way. Bootstrap form design classes. Then you start taking them one after the label. What is the class for label? Is what? Form what? Label. Then what's the class for inputs? You write form control. So this is how you will be writing the form hyphen word control. So these are the classes that will make them what? Responsive. So I can decide to say, okay, I want to attach placeholder, which we already know, kind of way of guiding them to know what they have to input. Placeholder, enter your email, enter your email, enter your email. So let's check the front end. So I think we are seeing it already. Let me comment my entire table out so that we can focus on this. Okay, focus on the form. So let me go back there. So you can see the way the input is styled what 100%. And now let's see whether it's responsive. You can see that what it has already added the kind of focus effect to it. So you can see that the form is what responsive. No part of it is what trimming off. So now let's continue to build the input. So now the next one, this is the end of just like the same format that you were taught when we were learning manual. So what I'm going to do is that I will just bring in another word, div, and this div, the class will be what? Say mb hyphen 3. mb hyphen 3. Then we follow the same format. The next one is what? Label for, let's say here it's a password. Label for password. And then the class. The class. What is the class? The class are the same now. Or anywhere you are using label, you should know each class. Bootstrap class, which is what? Form what? Label, right? Form label. Anything label. This is the class. Anything input. The class is what? Form control. These are the things you need to. So let me put the description. This password. And then, of course, I can copy this input. Control C. and copy this input and then put it here. So this input, the type is changing to what? Password. So this is what? That is the what is giving us the what is it called? You know, like to make it display in block. To make this element display in block. Now, but I'm coming. Let me just see if I will explain it better. Let me just complete this. So which other one? I think form control is there. So let's check. Good luck. You are not coding. You're coding alongside you so that you can understand what we are doing. You are written the code. Eh? Okay. All right. So this particular MB is, let's write it down. Let's write the meaning down. The MB-3 is a spacing utility to create space. Spacing utility class that add margin to the bottom of an element. The spacing utility. A spacing utility class that add margin to the bottom of the elements. That add margin to the bottom of the elements. So let's complete the form design. I hope you are also coding. That is the end of the second div. So let's say we want to also add a submit button. So which means that if I want to increase the input in this form, the only thing I need to acknowledge, anywhere I have label, I put what? Bootstrap class name what? Form label. Anywhere I have input, I put what? Bootstrap class name what? Form control. So you can increase. So what I will stop at just this input. For your own, you can make it like 5 different inputs. You can add states. So long as an input, you put what? Form control. So long as a label, you put what? Form label. So these are the major classes that will make your form to be responsive. So let me quickly add the button. The button, I will use submit button. I will use button tag, and then the class of that button, Bootstrap class for the button, or type rather, I think the type was type. Since it's going to be actionable button, the type should be submit. So this button is going to use to submit data into our database. Submit. So the Bootstrap class name for button. We already know button class name now. What is the button class name again? What is the Bootstrap button class name? BTN. BTN, right? BTN is the main responsive what class name. Then what to now examine the color. Do not say what BTN again, right? BTN hyphen what? Maybe primary or any other color. So if I go back to the front end, I think we should have a button there. Very good button. Now let's check the responsiveness of this. So let's also use this to drag. You can see that was responsive. Now, class challenge. Who can tell us the Bootstrap class name to move this button to the center? Look at, don't open your notes. Right? Don't open your notes. This button, I want you to come to the center or to the Bootstrap class name. Float what? So I'll say floats have been what? Center. All right, let's go there. Below. Below. I know what you're trying to recall. Yeah, you can get it. I know you know it that very day. You were calling it up and down for me that day. M start it. M what? S auto. M S what? Auto. So we are now, is it float again? Is the float still there? What we're using MS? So we just what? MS what? MS I feel what? Auto. So let's see whether it will go. It did not still go. Why is not going? Because what? Is it a block element? No. So we have to, for you to add D, right? Yeah. I feel block. It means that, are you saying that button is an inline element? Yes. Or button is a block element? Okay, because that is the only way you will know that I need to add what? The block. So let's go there and check. Perfect. In fact, it is absolutely. So another challenge is coming. Good luck. You are the one that. How can I move this to this right? The right hand side. Good luck. You are good luck. You got to take the simple one. I'm coming to you. Don't worry. I'm coming to you. So good luck. Close. Okay. Let me try to make sure that I'm sure of what I'm saying. Close. I mean what? And let's try memorizing this. That is the essence of this class, taking them one after the other. Plus, but now we'll have finished Bootstrap because what I normally do before is your class that I'm taking it like this. This is the first time I'm taking it like this. So what I normally do is that we all go to that place, that documentation, copy them and paste, then explain and move on. But because some of you are very faithful, I just decided to let me reciprocate. People like Bosco, they are very committed. Even with the rain, they will still come. And Grace used to disappear sometimes. Yeah. So the person that end this now is Bosco majorly, and the good luck coming from Jebode. I need to make sure that they know this very well because it's not easy. So please, it's very important we memorize some of these things. Sometimes you even start coding. The more you use them, like that your project now, there's no way you will use Bootstrap from the beginning to the end of that your project. That some of these classes will not stick to your memory forever. Many of them will be there. All right. So let's take it back. Oga, how do we take it back to the left hand side? Start. So let's perfect. Okay. Good. So let's quickly look at huh? I should go up on that. I should leave it here. Okay. All right. So write Bootstrap input sizes. Right. Bootstrap input sizes. That is how we can make the input smaller. Bootstrap input what? Sizes. To reduce the size or increase the size of Bootstrap form inputs, use
form hyphen control hyphen LG. LG is for what? For large. Then for small will be what? SM. Good. So let's add it to one of these inputs. So I will just add this. I will say what? Form hyphen control hyphen what? LG. If you go back to your front end, so that will make it what? Can you see that this one is bigger than the expanded, right? Then if you change it to SM, it will also what? Be smaller. You can see that this one is smaller than what? The rest. So if you discover that maybe you want to reduce the height of the rows, that is what? The inputs. Then you put what? Bootstrap, that is a form, hyphen what? Control, hyphen what? SM. So if you want medium, what will you put? Put it now, it might work for you, though it's not here, but now let's look at Bootstrap form input validation styles. Right, Bootstrap form input validation style. Bootstrap form input validation style. What we are saying is that, for example, you program that they should enter email here, right? And somebody is not entering email. The moment the person click here and is trying to type what is not meant to be there, the borderline will show red that what you are typing is not the right information. Or if you get it correct, to show what? Green. So that's the way of you trying to guide it. I believe you must have seen form like that. Once you start typing the wrong information, you see that what the input will be highlighted with what? Red. So that is what we want to look at now. Bootstrap what? So use Bootstrap class called form or is. Use Bootstrap class called is, that is is hyphen valid hyphen valid I hyphen what? Valid. Then you write value. Okay, let me type it so that you can be seeing it. Now, this is what we are saying. Look up. You come here. Let's say I'm applying it here. I'll say what? Is valid. Is valid. That's the class name. Is valid. Is valid. Then you have to pass a value. Value. The value is what? Valid input. Valid input. Valid input. So if I come here now, can you see it mark what? You used to do a check it. Did you see this green line that came out and it checked it just by adding what? That is valid. So it's a validation way of differentiating the column. Now let's look at the next one, right? Bootstrap class input class name for invalid. Bootstrap what? Input class for invalid. For invalid is hyphen invalid, just like the way we did. Let me apply this on another one. Let's say here is invalid. Invalid, and the value, if you want to put the value there so that you can be seeing it. If I go to the front end, you see that what is it having now? Red color. Now, what we are saying is that, let's say you are filling this, what's supposed to be here? I think this is a input name, Abby. Is the email address? This is email address, password, and what? and the username, right? I know I created for 3. So email address, let's say, so we can silence that value so that nothing display inside it. So let's say prosper at hello or at gmail.com. So they are just this is not actually working alone because it's going to work with JavaScript. But at this stage, the way I can explain it is that maybe you are giving an example, just want to give them that appearance that what this one is not valid, why this is valid. It's just working on the appearance, like the CSS aspect. So it's not attaching any reasonable action to it. So any questions so far? So what is more important to us to know about the Bootstrap form classes? The focus should be on what? Form control. How many of them we have identified so far? Form what? Control, form label. Those are the key ones. Every other thing you are only trying to modify. So your classwork, right? Your classwork, research on the following Bootstrap classes elements, or research on the following Bootstrap element classes. Research on the following. So you start it and then you can take it to as an assignment, and that will bring us to the end of Bootstrap element classes.